We've got flags and banners, and if you mind your manners, we might even get to standards and what they represent. So just take my voice's hand and we'll both try to understand how this Vexillology podcast could be flagged for content. Flagged for content.
What's up, Vexheads, and welcome to episode 72 of Flagged for Content. It's the only podcast that has a NAVA Driver Award winner on this week. That's right, we have Carlos Morales-Ramírez coming right up after I get through just a few housekeeping things here. It is, as always, a Flags for Good podcast as well. And you can go on over to flagsforgood.com/flagged4content for like the number and check out all the amazing flags they have there. They have like new ones every week, every time I go on there. And when you go to check out, use code flagged4content, spelled the same way with that 4-digit in there. My brother-in-law bought me a flag for a birthday gift recently and did not know that I had that code. So shout out, Matt, though. Thanks for the Portland flag regardless. And not a whole lot else I wanted to get into here. Oh, I did want to shout out, we have 2 new patrons since I've been announcing them anyway. That would be Brian Rainier and Carlos Morales-Ramírez. A couple familiar names if you've listened to /watch last episode and the one you're listening to right now. Thank you both so much for the support. I appreciate you coming on as guests. I appreciate you being on the Patreon. That said, last little plug here up top. Do go and join the Patreon. We have bonus episode with not just the 2 previously mentioned guys, but with most of our past guests. We started doing it in I think the teens or 20s of the episodes. And if you do the $10 level, there's even more bonus content. So go check that out. It's patreon.com/flagsforcontent spelled out. Anyway, that's the end of that. As mentioned a couple times now, I've got Carlos on the show. He is a professor at Westchester University, teaches a lot of different classes that relate to your interests and mine, basically. But no more dilly-dallying. I will let Carlos explain what he does right here. Let's fly on in.
Folks, we have yet another Vex All-Star on this week. You know him as a NAVA Driver Award winner. You know him as the coolest geography professor, someone else's words, not his. And you know him as your favorite vexillologist's favorite vexillologist. It's Carlos Morales-Ramírez!
What? All of that for me? Are you sure?
I'm sure, man. I'm sure. And that was me paring it down. You have no idea what I started with.
Oh, awesome. I'm sure you have pages and pages, right?
Oh, yeah. But honestly, that page was mostly your favorite vexillologist's favorite vexillologist's favorite vex. Yeah, it kind of went like that. So it was like a word count issue with me.
Got it. So you made it even like a lesser thing that it already was. So you're like, yeah.
Depending on how you look at it,
I'll take it.
Anyway, I mean, Carlos, how you been, man? It's been a minute.
I know, right? Since last NAVA meeting, I think.
October of last year.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, if I tell you how's it going, we're gonna need another hour. So a lot has been happening since that meeting. At that meeting, if you recall, I presented the research I was doing for my second doctorate. So I finished that.
I do, yeah.
So that was keeping me very, very busy.
Right, I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that is done. Obviously, now the fun part begins because now I get to start publishing the research that I did and talking more about the results, which I'm sure we're going to get to here. And also, I'm hoping to present that at the next NAVA meeting and, just doing research, publishing, teaching, coming up with classes I will never teach. But it's still fun to create curriculum like that. That's something that I like doing, even if it doesn't go anywhere. Like I enjoy that part
Fair
of
enough.
my career.
Just
But
almost like a thought exercise of like, where could I take this?
right,
Yeah.
right. It's like I even have my flag classes ready. So whenever the university's ready, I'm like, here it is. Let's teach flags.
Hell yeah, right on. So, all right, speaking of flags, we've got a lot to get into. I'm going to let the listeners and viewers know what's on the flagpole today. We've got our usual over and underrated flags. We'll go in depth on how Carlos won that aforementioned 2017 driver award. We're going to talk plenty about his arts-based research in geographical vexillology and how he brings that to the classroom, again, as mentioned, and have a couple listener questions near the end. But Carlos, before we get into any of that, I do like to ask my guest, what is the flag that got you into flags?
That would be any flag. I think similar to geography, like I've always been
Yeah.
obsessed with the geography, the same with flags. So I remember always taking the social studies textbooks and just flipping them to the back where you get them. I don't know if they're similar in the US, but in
Oh
Puerto
my,
Rico,
yes.
like,
Yeah, they
yeah,
are.
like we would get the maps and the capitals, and you would get the flags as well.
Ah,
Um, but if I had to choose one, it would probably be the flag of my town, San Sebastian, my hometown in Puerto Rico.
okay.
Um, Puerto Rico has 78 towns, and each of them has their own flag. And for the most part, the designs are really, really cool.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
and I think we have, one of the best designs. And those municipal flags are everywhere, unlike in a lot of cities here in the US where you only see it at the
Yes.
borough or like, official buildings. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
the flag of my hometown was everywhere, and we studied it at length in school. And I would say either that or the flag of Puerto Rico. As you know, us Puerto Ricans are really, really proud of being Puerto Rican in general, but definitely our flag
Right.
too. You see it everywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
um,
sure.
but yeah,
Um,
it would probably be the flag of my hometown first.
so
That probably
yeah,
got me.
go into that a little bit. Like, yeah, I have been to Puerto Rico one time. It was back in like 2015, so it's been a minute. Like, well, longer ago than I'd like to admit. I guess 10 years. Um, but yeah, like they are very proud of their local flags. I can remember, like you're saying,
Mhm.
like the it's not a huge island, but the different like towns, municipalities, etc., all have their own one. What's the one for San Sebastian look like? Uh, yeah, and what got you into that specifically?
Yeah, so it's a very simple, clean design. It's split diagonally. So instead of a band splitting the flag diagonally, it's like a wavy band because it represents one of the rivers in the town. And then the top right corner
Oh,
is red, the bottom left corner is green.
dude,
So
this is
it's
a very cool flag.
right.
I had not looked this up. I intentionally a lot of times don't look up the guests that or the flags that guests are going to bring on. Wow. Yeah,
Yes,
this reminds me of a flag from somewhere else almost. I
it does. I mean, it has the colors of the flag of Mexico. So I'm not sure. Maybe that's the one that you were thinking of because it's also like basically like tri-band with those three colors. But this one obviously is
yeah.
different because it's diagonal, and then instead of a regular stripe or band, it's wavy. So I've always been interested in wavy bands and flags as well. I actually wrote a short piece for. The Vexillology tabloid. I think that's how you pronounce it. Apologies.
Okay.
It's the Portland Flags Association's. I don't know if they call it like a journal, a newsletter.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, yeah.
yeah, they
Their
publish
publication
for.
in any case.
Yeah. So I actually wrote about some of these wavy bands on flags, specifically for some of the towns in Puerto Rico, because San Sebastian is not the only town that employs that wavy band to represent one of the rivers. So I think that's just the simplicity of it, just being exposed to it and learning about it at a very early age is probably why I was even more interested in
Yeah.
flags.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we were really exposed to it. So yeah,
Right.
I
Right.
think that's what it is. On top of all the other flags, as I said, just flags in general. But
Yeah. 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 I suspect that's going to be a commonality here.
yeah,
Um, yeah. No, I'd never seen the San Sebastian one. It reminds me like it almost reminds me of like a continental Spain one. I don't know what it is about. Like maybe it's the curvy river. Maybe I'm thinking of the flag of Zamora, which has like the really weird like it has all the pennants. It's not like one piece. It's
oh
green
no,
and
I
red
have
like
to
that.
look it up.
Yeah, Zamora. Um, but yeah, no.
Oh yeah,
I'm wondering like what the Puerto Rican like I guess relationship to flags is like because it's interesting to me the fact that technically Puerto Rico is a commonwealth or a not commonwealth
no, I
what's the
think
word
that's
I'm
the
looking for, a
official. I
territory.
think that's the official term. I think
It
it
is
is.
it is a commonwealth, but not in the same sense that like Kentucky and Pennsylvania are. It is
Yes.
also a territory. So yeah, it's a
Yes.
little bit more legally mysterious, I guess. But um but like when you growing up in Puerto Rico,
Mhm.
when you look up and you see the flags, and I know this isn't something we specifically discuss in our notes, but I'm curious, do you get a similar feeling out of looking at the Puerto Rican one as the American one? Do you get do they both feel like a national flag in a sense, or do you feel more affinity for one? And feel free to tell me to cut all this.
No, no, no. It's actually a great question, and it's a good segue, probably 10 or 20 minutes from now, to the NAVA, the
Fair.
Driver Award winning
Yes.
presentation, because that's actually what I did. I wanted to find out if Puerto Ricans felt more strongly towards their town flag rather than towards the Puerto Rican flag. We'll get to that. But at least for me, I do prefer the flag of my hometown a lot more than the Puerto Rican flag. I mean, obviously, again, I'm typical Puerto Rican. I have that flag everywhere.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh no, yeah, I do have the Puerto Rican flag here, but it's more like the pride
Yeah, I saw that.
version. But I have the Puerto Rican flag in my office and campus. I don't have it hanging from my car like most people. But if I could, I would do that.
Yeah.
But it's more because that one is more recognizable. Like people would know that's the flag of Puerto Rico. But I do prefer the flag of my hometown of San Sebastian.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I'll leave it at that because we will get to the presentation.
I was going to say, yeah, exactly.
It's short because we will go back to that later.
Yep. I have a feeling. All right, let's go ahead and get into between the overrated and the underrated. I usually let the guest pick which one they'd like to start with. So take us away on either of those.
Let's get the overrated out of the way.
Let's do it.
Yes, I am happy that I am a longtime listener of your show, and many people have chosen this flag before because initially I was like, I don't want to offend anyone. I wouldn't even say this out loud that I think this flag is overrated. But then when I started seeing more and more people come to your show and be like, no, that flag is overrated, I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. I can say it out loud. To me, it's the flag of Maryland. Here in the U.S. Nothing against the flag. Like I said, I love flags in general, even if they're quote unquote bad or quote unquote good. The flag of Maryland is perfectly fine. I just think it is overrated. Like when I started watching your show and this was a segment, to me there was no doubt in my mind that this was going to be my overrated flag whenever I came to your show.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I appreciate also how proud they are of their flag because I haven't been to many places in Maryland, but I remember like the few places I've been to, it's also everywhere. So I'm like, oh, cool. Like I like that.
Yeah.
But it's just too much. For me, it's too much. And I don't mind too much on a flag, but it's just like too much. And I don't abide too much by flag principles. But the first thing that comes to mind when I see the flag of Maryland is no one is going to draw that by memory. Like that pattern is so complicated. to draw it by memory. It's not complicated design wise, but yeah, like that's why I'm like, I get it. It's a cool flag. I don't mind it, but also being voted the best state flag, I was like, no.
Yeah. And that's like listeners, viewers, people that love Maryland and their flag, like, this is all we're saying. Like, it is overrated. It's not that it's a terrible flag. It's not the worst flag in the US by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, like Carlos just brought up, like, how is a 10-year-old going to remember how to draw this, where the counter changes are, and where the, like, it's needlessly complicated. I understand y'all love it. I get why you put it on everything.
Yeah.
But even when they put it on everything, it's a simplified version of it. Usually, it's like a simplified version of the Calvert Cross and the or the Crossland Cross and the Calvert whatever. But
yeah, no, and thank you for bringing that up, because I fully agree with your statement. We're not saying that your flag is not a good design. We're not saying any of that. It's just overrated, because I do like it. I think that last time that I went to Maryland, I did buy a few things with the flag, because I'm like, I love it. It's really good. But yeah, also being voted, it was voted the top flag, right? In that last NAVA survey.
Was it? I thought New Mexico was, but I could be wrong. If not, I mean, it was second. Like, it's,
True. And again, it can be in the top 10. I don't mind that either, because it is a quote unquote good flag. But yeah, it is overrated.
Yeah. Well, no, never mind. I can't be heard on air saying what I was about to say. So. All right. Yeah. No great disagreement there. And as you've touched on, it has been touched on this show. So, let's go ahead and get into, that was the overrated. Let's get into an underrated, one or two. I don't know how many you have here.
Yeah, I think I gave you the main one and then sort of like a runner-up. And I don't know if these flags are underrated, but when I was thinking about underrated flags, I was thinking about probably a national flag of a country that we don't hear a lot about. If I didn't think at the national level, then every single subnational flag would be here as underrated, because we're not exposed to them that much.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I kept it at the national level. I gave you Papua New Guinea as a runner-up, mostly because it's one of my favorite flags. Anytime a flag has an animal or a map, I would say it's probably one of my favorite flags. But I would say the most underrated flag, again, based off what I described, because I honestly don't know if it's truly underrated, but it would be the flag of Kosovo. It's a simple design. It's clean. It has a blue background. It has the shape of the country in, I think it's like a golden color or yellow. And then it has 6 or 7 stars at the top of the map. So again, very clean. You can easily tell from afar that this is the flag of Kosovo. And again, I just like, anytime you put a map on a flag, I'm going to love it, unless it gets too complicated. But as we're going to talk about with my favorite flag, you're going to see a pattern with the type of flags that I like. Because like I said, anything with an animal shape or a map, I'm going to think it's good. And I know if we go by flag design principles, or, trying to make sure that we can reproduce this flag and not make it too costly, then probably Kosovo is not ideal. But again, I think it's, the map just sold me, but then the simplicity of it, the colors that they chose, I think it's such a cool flag. It's definitely there as also one of my favorite flags.
You
say that one.
Okay, as an underrated, wildly underrated, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, and I think it probably has to do with the fact that Kosovo is still not internationally recognized by a lot of countries as an independent country. So, again, when I was thinking underrated, national level, what are some of those countries that we don't hear a lot about?
For sure.
Kosovo is probably one of those. mainly because of that, because there's not a lot of international recognition. So
yeah, no, that totally tracks. Like, I also remember like, and you and I have like a lot of overlapping like interest points here. Like growing up, like my Atlas was my favorite book. I imagine it was pretty far up there for you too.
yes.
Uh, and yeah, we just go through that, and like at the time I was looking at the Atlas, Kosovo wasn't even its own separate country yet. I think it was still part of. I think even at the time it was like Serbia and Montenegro was a
Okay.
country, and then I think current Kosovo was like part of that. I cannot remember exactly, but it was like this was published kind of when a lot of that was in flux. And you know, Kazakhstan's capital has changed like 9 times since then too. So
Yes.
um
Oh, well, you actually had a recent one. You're probably younger than me then, because ours still had Yugoslavia. So our textbooks didn't have all of these other countries.
yeah, I think mine must have been just after the breakup of Yugoslavia. It was like early mid, like I don't know, 93, 94, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like probably ongoing Balkan conflicts and stuff. So. But no, yeah, the Kosovo flag, like, it hasn't really gotten any shine at all on here. I don't think it's been talked about too negatively either. I mostly when we mention it, it's because we're mentioning flags that have maps on them in a sense of like kind of a UN peacekeeping thing or something like when we think of Cyprus and you have, you know, Turkey and Greece that both want control of it. Kosovo is like kind of finds itself in a similar enough situation. We don't talk much about maps on flags, and when it is talked about, it's usually talked about as a negative or as a like placeholder, I guess, like a placeholder in the sense of like once the UN is more settled on who owns this territory, we may figure out a different flag type thing. But honestly, I'm with you. I don't hate the flags of either Kosovo or Cyprus. I have to say, I kind of lean Cyprus if I were picking between the two, but I really like the gold outlines of both, or the gold shapes of both. And like the Kosovo's got the 6 stars. Like, yeah, I would say definitely underrated. It's a good pick for that.
Yeah, no, and you brought up a good point with, I forget how you phrased it already, but you said something about having the maps there. Another reason why I also like when flags have maps on them. As an educator and as a geographer, I'm always thinking of ways on how to incorporate flags in my teaching, or trying to see like if students could get something out of it. And I actually did do a research on maps on flags. So I actually did a survey in a class in Singapore. Yeah, I was still in Singapore doing my PhD. And I actually wanted to see if students could identify the country by the flag. So I forget which country specifically I gave them, but I do remember I gave them a historic flag of Bangladesh. I forget the year.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah, like it's the same flag, but then it has the country in the center.
Yeah, the country is outlined in gold within a red circle within a green field. Yeah.
Yes, and I just wanted to see, like, okay, since the map is already there, let's see if the student can identify the country by the flag, or vice versa. Because I also gave them some outlines of some countries, and I just asked them like to name the country. If they could. So the results were really, really interesting. That was a research I had a lot of fun doing and publishing. Because again, we don't talk about maps on flags a lot. Now, granted, I think one of the first papers that came out was from Mason Kay, Ted Kay's son.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like from 2006. So there were some papers out there talking about that, but I feel like we haven't capitalized on that a lot. And even after him, it reminded me there was another research that came out. The author's last name is White. And he actually coined the phrase or the subdiscipline cartographic vexillology. So till this day, whenever I do something with maps on flags, I have to cite him because he was the first one that actually called it cartographic vexillology.
Put the words together, yeah.
And as we're going to discuss, I am a sucker for those subdisciplines and coming up with clever titles. So I'm like, yes, Cartographic vexillology. More on that.
Absolutely. And perfect, Carlos. Speaking of more on that, we are
Yes.
going to get into our ad break here, our first one out of two. When we come back, we are going to talk more on that with Carlos as far as like what he does professionally, how he works all this into his classes, maps and flags. I mean, you heard a lot of it here. So stick around. We'll be right back, folks. All right, Vexheads, we are back. Part two here, more with Carlos. And Carlos, before we get into what you do teaching-wise, professionally, all that, wanted to touch a little bit on what your favorite flag is, because it may color some of that for us.
Yeah, that one is easy. And I actually found out that this was my favorite flag recently.
Okay.
So it's the flag of Christmas Island. For the reasons I have already explained, anytime you give me an animal outline, not the actual animal, but like an outline or a map, I'm sold. And then this flag gives me both.
So so for anyone who may not know what this flag looks like, briefly describe it.
I had to write it down because it is a little bit of a busy design.
Sure.
So it's green and blue. The background is green and blue, is split diagonally. It has the Southern Cross constellation in the bottom left corner. It has a white-tailed tropic bird in the upper right corner. In the center, it has a disc or a circle, and it has the map of the island. So yes, design-wise, it some people may see it as a busy design. I love it because it includes, like I said, animals and maps. Before that, I was always telling people that my favorite flag was the flag of Niue. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but it's a New Zealand territory.
I'm not sure either, but I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I would only say that because of that orange yellow color. Like, it's so pretty to me that I was like, that's my favorite flag. But then recently, I reminded myself, no, there's another flag out there that checks all of your boxes, and it's the flag of Christmas Island. So yes, that's my favorite flag.
Yeah. I am not gonna lie, and at the risk of outing myself as a huge idiot in front of my listener base, fan base, and everything, the whole time off air that we were talking about the flag of Christmas Island, this of Christmas Island, etc., I was picturing the flag of Norfolk Island because it has a Christmas tree on it.
Okay, I can see that.
Otherwise looks similar. It's not a Canadian pale, so forgive me, but it looks similar to the Canadian flag, but if there was a Christmas tree and things were green. I got so caught up in the Christmas of it all that I forgot the actual Christmas Island flag, which of course I know, which is this one that you've described here. And yeah, I mean, oh my God. One, a little embarrassed, but two, it checks, like you said, all your boxes. It's got local wildlife. It's got a map. It's got a star map, if you want to count that as two kinds of maps. Like, the colors are appealing. Like,
oh yes, the colors are beautiful.
The colors are gorgeous on this one. Like, yeah, there's not a lot to not like with this one. So, yeah. Do you bring that in on like day one as one of your? Well, let's get going into that. How does a typical what's a day one class with Professor Morales-Ramírez like?
Well, the first day is usually the boring day because
what's the second day like?
Yeah, I was gonna say the first day is when you talk about the syllabus and whatnot.
Typical.
But yeah, no. Even in the first day, I do introduce myself, especially if it's like a general education course, like a course like world geography, for example, is not a course that our majors necessarily have to take. It's more of a course that's part of the general education that other departments can take. And it is recommended for people studying education, which makes sense.
Sure.
So I do get a lot of education majors there. So in that first day, when I introduce myself, I do tell them my background, and I do tell them that one of my lines of research is vexillology. And that's when they're all like, what?
Yeah, do you get a lot of hands in the air at that? Like,
I immediately explain
okay,
what
yeah.
it is. I think when I started teaching, I would ask them, like, do any of you know what vexillology is? And
Right.
you know how it is sometimes. Like, they're just like, just tell me what it is. Like, it's the first day of class. Like, we shouldn't be doing quizzes this early. But no, not now. I tell them I do research with flags. So that definitely happens on the first day, other than, of course, the policies and stuff. But then second day and beyond, it depends on what I teach. So I teach geography courses that range from your regional courses, which are these courses that are specific to a location, like world geography. I teach geography of Latin America. Those are your regional courses. Other than those, I also teach specialized courses. Our department at Westchester University in Pennsylvania specializes a lot in environmental geography and sustainability.
Right.
So I teach courses, like one of them is called Environmental Crises, which I love. I don't teach it as a doomsday course, although it sounds like that.
It does, yeah.
So that would be a good example of how I start my class. That class will be a good example because I tell my students, we know these things are happening. So I'm not here to cause any depression, make you feel bad, and that we're all going to die. We're not doing that. We already know that. We're
coming in with this as a baseline.
Yes.
What do we?
And we're going to spin it into a positive. What can we do to solve this crisis or to mitigate it? Because some of them we cannot stop necessarily. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. And what all you mentioned a couple of them there, but what all classes do you teach? They're all themed, I would gather, around geography as a central kind of theme, I guess. But
yeah. So, environmental crises. That one, based on the description and the title, it is more generic in the sense that it's not necessarily a geography course per se. But obviously, as a geographer, I do teach it from that perspective, thinking always about the why of things and you know, why this happens here and not there. What is, you know, the cost? And like I said, how are we going to mitigate it and things like that. This past semester, I taught a class called Introduction to Urban Studies. That one is also very interdisciplinary. So it's not necessarily a geography course, although it is in the geography department.
Okay, yeah.
But other than that, see, and when I get asked, what do you teach? I always forget because I am starting to teach upper level classes now more.
Yeah.
So in the coming fall, I'm teaching environmental geopolitics, which I'm really excited about. That one is more geography because we are talking about political power and how this actually relates to environmental issues and environmental agendas within the different governments. So that one is more geography, but we have a mix of both. Because in general, geography is interdisciplinary. It's very eclectic. We touch on so many different things that we tend to go a little bit beyond what geography is. And then I have the standard geography courses that make you memorize capitals and rivers, you know, the typical geography that everyone thinks we do, which I always tell them too in those courses. I'm like, I am not here to make you memorize any of these things. And if I do, it's for a reason. Like I have a purpose. I'm not just going to make you memorize, like, you know, where these mountains are and that's it. Right?
What the capital of Kazakhstan is on any given day. My atlas taught me all those things. Like if your students want that, they can go to that. Like they utilize you for way more important stuff, I assume. And
exactly. Yeah. And I want to show them what geography is about. It's not about that, especially in this generation, in this day and age. We have technology. We can look it up ourselves.
Right. Yeah. The game has changed a lot from you and I, you know, sitting looking through atlases and stuff like that. But
true.
So how do you and in which classes, I guess, do you bring vexillology into the classroom, and does it help you explain geography? Does geography help you explain it? I guess maybe a little bit of both. Like, how do those go hand in hand classroom wise?
Well, I recently started incorporating them. I just got officially hired, so now I am an assistant professor. Before that, I was an adjunct professor.
Congrats.
So thank you. So as an adjunct, it's a little bit tougher to get creative. Not that anyone is going to be like, you're fired because you're teaching flags and this is world geography.
Sure.
But I think I was more aware of that, so I wasn't incorporating flags back then. But I started, now that I'm an assistant professor, incorporating a little bit, not too much. Last fall, I think, was the first time that I fully dedicated a few weeks of the course actually to vexillology. And it was mostly because of the doctorate that I was doing, because the bulk of the research, actually the entire research, not the bulk, the entire research was with flags. So I actually incorporated them in world geography. It made the most sense out of all the courses that I was teaching. And based on what I wanted the students to do, which was to design a flag for any given place that they chose, I made sure that I introduced what vexillology is. We talked about flag design principles, quote unquote, good and bad flags and how that looks like. And then from there, I just wanted to have them not only design the flag, but also tell me via their design, how do they interpret the concept of place, which is so central to geography.
Right.
So I actually touch on both vexillology and geography in the sense that I wanted them to follow those flag design principles. So that's purely vexillology.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted their design to have something geographical. So that's when I wanted them to focus on, how do you see the concept of place, or how do you understand the concept of place through your flag design? And in the fall, I'm actually doing a different research in human geography. And that one is going to be a little bit of everything. I'm going to touch on flag designs, like what do you think about your state flag and all of that. And we're also going to look at similar flags. So I'm going to use the Texas flag and the Chile flag to see what do they think, and they identify one over the other. And I think in human geography makes more sense to incorporate flags because we have an entire unit dedicated to cultural geography, which, as the name suggests, is all about cultures. So here's where you can bring things like cultural artifacts with which flags are. So it's a little bit easier, I would say, in a course like human geography to bring in flags, specifically when we are going to talk about culture, identity, and just any geographic concept in general. So little by little, I'm incorporating them. Not a lot. Obviously, in environmental crises, there's no room for flags. I mean, I'm sure I can come up with something, but it depends on the course.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What was it that you called it? Human geography?
Human geography.
Yeah, like flags could almost could not make what am I trying to say? Flags make the ultimate amount of sense there, where human geography is concerned, as far as like especially I imagine you're dealing with like population movement as well in a certain sense, and like people carrying with them the flags of their ancestors, their forefathers, their parents, their whatever. That could get into some really, really fascinating territory. And so going back to, like, you mentioned, did you have your students design flags, you said?
Yes.
And so what were knowing that there are no right and wrong answers for that.
Yes.
Did you have any designs that really stuck out to you as being like human geographically designed, or just like well designed in general?
Oh yeah, there were plenty, I would say, that were really good, especially for what I was looking for, because some of them got a little bit busy, and if you go by the flag design principles, you're like, they didn't follow them, but what they actually came up with was really, really good. So I had 37 students. with the research, I obviously had to get consent from them to use their flag designs for my research.
Yeah.
So I made sure that their flag designs were anonymous. So I
Right.
didn't know which student drew which flag. So that was really cool too,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
then you don't have any biases going into this, trying to be like, oh, this student did this because of this or
Yeah.
because of that. So it
Even
was,
unconscious biases, like, yeah.
yes, but for the most part, they follow flag design principles as much as they could, and they incorporated things that I was shocked. Like there was one flag that they chose San Diego, California. Beautifully done, and I will probably present this at NAVA if my presentation gets accepted, because
Okay.
it was probably one of my favorite designs. It was 3 bands. I forget the colors that were horizontal. The colors were really nice. I think it was like yellow, green, blue. They went really well together. And then
Yeah.
in the center, it had an avocado, because that is one of their major economic exports, I think, or they produce a lot of avocados in the region. So it's, obviously, at first sight or first glance, you see it and you're like, why an avocado for
Yeah.
a flag in the US? But then
Right.
when they explained it, I was like, oh my gosh, this was well thought out. Like they really focus on the details of the place and selected symbols that really go well with the area while making the design very unique and interesting. So that was one of them. Obviously, a few of them got me with the animals. There was a cute one for an island. I think it was in South Carolina, and they use a turtle. I can't remember.
Oh.
It was also like 3 bands with the turtle in the center, but the turtle was front and center. So that was really cool, and the
Okay.
turtle was for the biodiversity of the area. So you see how they were connecting
Yeah.
those symbolism
That's
to
what's
something.
so. Yeah, that's what I'm so interested in. Is uh if you're not going to straight up draw a map of a county or a city or whatever, like what are you going to do to represent the, yeah, like you said, the biodiversity for one thing, among others, like yeah, it's just fascinating the different routes one can take to get there, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So yeah, there was a lot of interesting designs for sure.
it must be fascinating, like being in your position and getting to see 37 different minds pick through that and like figure it all out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's data there that I can publish until I die.
Yeah, plus you got that out of
Yes.
it. Let's pivot slightly from that into your, so you presented at NAVA, what, 58 was last year, right?
Yes.
In St. Paul. And your presentation was largely on this, as you called it, geographic vexillology via arts-based research. So you've explained to us a little bit of what that is, but if you want to kind of fill in the rest of the picture, rather, and give us kind of just maybe the thesis of what the presentation was about.
Yeah. And I am going to start. I'm going to read. So if
No, absolutely. Trust me, I've got it up here too. So yeah.
No, because I want to get this right. I want to start addressing that first part with the whole geographic vexillology, because
Yes.
there is research out there that has done something similar. I have been doing this kind of research for a few years now. I think the first paper that I published on what I call geographic vexillology was like in 2015 or 2016. Not that great. I've gotten a lot better.
First draft,
But in 2019, there was a research published in a scientific journal of authors proposing this subdiscipline that sees the intersection of geography and vexillology. And they call it vexil geography, which I don't think it rolls off the tongue easily, but I do have to acknowledge them as well.
Yeah.
Because again, their article was published also in a journal that had a higher impact than the journal that I published mine. And back then I wasn't calling it geographic vexillology. But they published this article in 2019 that says this subdiscipline is basically the geographical study of flags. The reason why I still go with my version of it, the geographic vexillology, is because I want this to be a lot broader than what they propose. What they propose is great. I'm not criticizing it. But when we talk about geographic vexillology, I'm talking about studying all aspects of geography in flags and in flag design. So it's a lot more broader than what they propose in this 2019 article. So definitely want to acknowledge that. There are a lot of other researchers that have done similar research. They probably don't call it geographic vexillology. Again, that was something that I came up with just because I like to streamline things, and I'm like that. I need to see like a name.
Same, it helps.
Like I mentioned earlier, when I saw the cartographic vexillology, that author White, and I think his article came out in 2007. When I saw that, I was like, yes, I'm always going to say cartographic vexillology moving forward. But yeah, by no means am I claiming that this is an approved or, you know, a subdiscipline that exists. So I want to start by putting that out there.
Sure.
But my thought process was more of, let's study all geographic elements on flags, or all geographic aspects of flags, and not be that specific. So for this research, like I said, I wanted to see how students interpreted the concept of place via their flag design. And this is where the arts-based research comes into play. So that is the actual methodology that I used. So when you're doing scientific research, there are various methodologies that you can choose. You have your quantitative ones, which are more numbers based, but you have your qualitative methodologies, which focus more on the actual experiences. What insights are you getting from the data? And then I found out arts-based research while I was researching methodologies, and I saw that basically this is a qualitative methodology that takes into consideration the creative arts and the art process, and it starts exploring, providing inquiry into what are individuals saying through art, through any avenue of art.
Okay, that's fascinating. Rather than just, go on.
Yeah, no. Then I'm a talker. If I go off topic, let me know. Reel it in.
It's just fascinating to start from several different, somewhat unrelated vantage points. Like starting from the art versus the geography. Like those are obviously going to be like, if someone's just embedded in one camp and not the other, they're going to come up with something completely counter to whatever the other person comes up with. And I guess the fun game, or well, a fun game, I'm not necessarily saying it's what you do, but like to kind of mesh them together, or be like, okay, I lean toward the geographer on this point because they've got these couple things right. However, the art on this over here is really interesting, and we can make it say what we need it to say, etc. Like I'm so interested in the fusion of those ideas.
There's a lot of opportunities within vexillology because, and when you look at arts-based research as a methodology and you research what it is, I don't think they mention flags. But then if you think about it, flags are art in a sense. That's why I was like, this is a perfect methodology. And I'm not claiming I'm the first one. I'm just saying I have not seen research out there that does the arts-based methodology using flags. And also within geography, to your point, it's interesting because I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I also don't think we are using arts-based research methodologies in geography. Or maybe if we are, it's probably starting right now, right? It's not something that it's very common. So it's good for both sides, for the vexillology side and also for the geography side, to try and incorporate this qualitative methodology.
Yeah, it's a what can we learn from each other type thing and make both our disciplines better. Yeah, no,
it was an experience. I've always said I'm a quantitative researcher. I love numbers. Can't go wrong with stats. I love stats. But this experience was really, really interesting. And I think more on the vexillology side, it opened a lot more possibilities of the type of research that we can do with flags. So I'm really, really excited to explore more of the art space, but also more of other types of qualitative methodologies.
Yeah, absolutely. And just opening that up in general, the type of research that we can do on flags, with flags, two flag, you know, four flags, like you know, name your favorite preposition, I guess. But like yeah, no, it is so it's something that that should have been interdisciplinary for a while, that I'm glad like you and a few others are kind of like bringing into that world. Like I mean, even just from like having this show, the interactions I've had are phenomenal. Like there's graphic designers, people want to talk about the art of it, people want to talk about the history of it, people that are heads of organizations and just want to, you know, bring it all together and everything. Like there's so much to this hobby that every time I think I've kind of come to the like end of the rainbow or whatever on it, I'm like, oh no, there's somebody doing like a new thing. There's somebody using geographic vexillology via arts-based research, just for a random example. And like, man, yeah, I love what you're doing, and I love how well you synthesized it into your presentation at NAVA 58, which granted, I'm like the tech guy for a lot of that, so I'm like kind of sitting behind the presenter, and I'm usually, you know, I will see the entire presentation because it comes up on the laptop and everything, but I do sometimes like zone out when people are speaking because I have to like tackle an issue or this, that, or the other. But like, yeah, no, yours, I was one, fortunate to not have to tackle any major tech issues, and two, just in rapt attention of because I was like, yeah, like we said at the beginning, geography, vexillology, these are like, I mean, I didn't know the word vexillology growing up, but I knew that I liked it. And just to kind of have them all synthesized and have them all taught and kind of like unleashed on the next generation is awesome to see and hear about. But
yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate that you were there, focused and interested, because at first I was nervous. I'm like, this is,
I can't imagine,
something new. So I'm like, I don't know how the audience is going to react to it, or even other researchers are going to react to it, because it is something that has not been done yet, or to my knowledge. So it's like, it was really nerve-wracking. I think that's why the presentation was 10 minutes too, if you recall. I
do
did like a speed version of it.
I do, yeah.
I was like, no, I really wanted to go more in detail, but I guess it was more of those nerves of what is going to be the reaction to this. Is it going to be too much? Because even with my presentation that I won the driver award, that one was very quantitative. And I had the same fear, because I was like, are people going to understand the stats that I'm doing and why I'm doing it?
Right.
So it's
right.
Yeah, it's an interesting world to navigate, but it's always interesting to see and hear from other vexillologists like you that actually, like you were saying, every time you're like, oh yeah, I've seen and I've heard this, you're like, oh wait, there's more that we can do with flags.
Yeah. And I love that. I love discovering that. And half the time I kick myself because it's something that I feel like, damn it, I should have thought of that. Or at least like had the wherewithal to actually like, you know, chase that to its natural conclusion or whatever. But like, yeah. Man,
when are you presenting, Andy? Come up with the new thing.
I don't, not anytime soon. I was actually going to ask, just before we head into the next break, because I do want to talk about when you did win the driver award in 17. But before that, like, yeah, what is nerves wise and everything? I'm just curious personally, me, the difference between like, you know, getting up and teaching a class, presenting for a class, versus getting up and giving like one of these, which you've done multiple times now, presentations for like NAVA, for in our example.
I feel like it is different for sure. I think in the classroom is more relaxed because you are the knowledge expert and you're transmitting that.
This is knowledge. What I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you control it. It's more control. Like I know what I'm doing. In my case, I prepare well in advance. Like I want to make sure that I know what I'm going to talk about. And even if I mess up, it's a little bit different. Not that at a conference you can't say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. But like at a conference, you're more going straight to the point, and I have to make sure that I get my point across correctly.
Right.
Yeah. In front of the classroom, you can always, you know, stop, refresh, or say, actually, I don't even know where I was going with that.
I do that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. At a conference, I don't know. You could do that, but you normally don't do that. And I feel like the nerves are different because now you're presenting in front of peers, in front of people that for the most part know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So again, it's like, what are they going to think? Am I going to say something that's completely inaccurate and then they're going to call me out in the Q&A? So it's a little bit more intense. I get nervous in general in all situations. Like even in this podcast with you, I started very nervous. So I always start very nervous in every type of presentation I do, but then I get relaxed and I ease into it as I go along. So that intro is always like nerve-wracking regardless of the scenario, but definitely at a conference that those nerves at a higher level for sure.
Yeah. Well, all right. Speaking of that, let's try and get your nerves back up over the over this last commercial break here. No. I would have a hard time doing that, I think. Carlos, you're just too easy to talk to. But we are going to take our second break rather, and go into part 3 after this. We will get into that 2017 driver award. We've got a listener question, and we'll probably just give our plugs and kind of wind down here. Stay tuned for that. We will see y'all on the flip side. All right, folks, we are back with part 3 here, more with Carlos Morales-Ramírez. And we had just finished up talking about some of your talk at NAVA 58, your presentation there with the arts-based research, geographical, all that good stuff. But you also won a driver award in 2017 for a different presentation. This was before I was in NAVA, so I'm not exactly privy to it, but can you give us kind of a rundown of what that was and how it went down?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a short survey I did in Puerto Rico, just asking people about the Puerto Rican flag. I had them draw the flag, tell me the symbolism, the colors.
All coming back around.
Yeah. So, but also, and we talked about this earlier, I wanted to also see if they knew the flag of their town, because remember we were talking earlier how all the towns in Puerto Rico have their flag. You even mentioned that when you visited, you saw those local flags. And that's the case in almost every town. There's some that are better than others displaying their local flag, but you will see it more than how often we see it here in the US in our cities or boroughs or anything like that. So I also asked them about their town flag. So I wanted them to draw it, tell me the symbolism, and then just seeing if they actually identified more with the local flag. And I think you even asked me this question earlier, or with the national flag, with the Puerto Rican flag. And what I found was that most people knew their local flag a lot better than the Puerto Rican flag, at least symbolism wise. Because obviously the flag of Puerto Rico is very easy to draw. It's hard for someone to mess it up. But it was in the symbolism that not a lot of the individuals that I surveyed got that national symbol correct versus the local one. The local one they knew. And I'm the same way. I sometimes forget the full symbolism of the flag of Puerto Rico, but I remember the symbolism of my hometown's flag. And I saw that through that survey that I did. And then just randomly, there was like a third part of the survey that I just gave them flags of Latin American countries to see if they would identify them. And the flag that they had the hardest time identifying was Haiti, which...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and actually, I think that may be part of one of the activities I want to do in my human geography class in the fall that we talked about earlier as well.
Yeah.
I think I probably have some questions about the Haiti flag, because as a researcher, you love it when everything comes together and you get the results you were hoping for, or, you write it and it comes up beautifully. But when you get that kind of results, that's when you're like, oh, I should go that route. Now I should see, like, what's up with the Haiti flag? What is making it less known.
Yeah.
They were getting all the other ones right. I had there Jamaica, Brazil, I think Argentina, and they were getting all of those correctly for the most part. But Haiti was one that tripped them up. They were not sure what flag that was. I think, and this was years ago, so I may be butchering my own results, but I think probably like one or two individuals got it right. Everyone else either left it blank or just guessed something incorrectly.
And do you know, like, I mean, I guess like we might just be theorizing at this point, but like, what would you attribute that to? I mean, obviously the color scheme is a little bit different from, especially like a lot of Central America's like blues and whites, and really South America's. But you would think in a different scenario that could make it stand out and be more guessed. Whereas here it seems the opposite's happening. Do you have anything to attribute that to, or are you just guessing like I am?
It's probably exposure to the flag.
Okay.
As you know, if we think about sports, for example, that's when we see flags a lot more.
Yeah.
And then thinking, what kind of sports are Puerto Ricans exposed to that are more international? Well, we all know the FIFA World Cup. We are getting bigger in soccer now, football, soccer. But
and baseball.
What was that?
Sorry. I was going to say, and baseball. I don't know a lot of nations.
No. In other sports, we're definitely big, but soccer is one that's now, like, I feel like we are paying more attention to it. Probably in my generation, it was like, we probably watched the FIFA World Cup and that was it. Now it definitely has a lot more exposure in the island.
Right.
No, but you're right about baseball. I wasn't. Well, I was just trying to say that soccer is the main one.
No. I didn't think that you were. I just like when my brain goes to like the countries that we're talking about and everything, and then baseball, I'm like, I couldn't name a single Haitian baseball player, but Dominican Republic on the other side of the island, yes, I can name Dominican baseball players. I can name Puerto Rican baseball players, Cuban baseball players, like Central America, like So if we are talking sports, and baseball is bigger in that part of the world than I usually remember, I guess it is. I guess
we were going in two different directions. We're getting to the same thing.
So I like that. Exactly. Yeah.
No, my point was similar to the point that you just made, which is perfect too. But I was going to say with the FIFA World Cup, we see the flag of Brazil, of Argentina, Uruguay, whoever qualifies that year. But I don't think Haiti has ever qualified for the FIFA. I'm not a sports person, but I try to follow the big sports, the Olympics, FIFA, and all of that. Same with the Olympics. Like, Haiti's probably one of those countries that probably sends a handful of athletes to the Olympics, if they send any. So it's like there's not a lot of exposure to their flag in those international events. So I think definitely that could be a huge factor as to why they couldn't recognize the Haitian flag, but they did recognize Brazil and Jamaica and all of that.
Yeah.
To your point, with baseball, that was a good example. We probably don't know off the top of our heads, like a big baseball player. And even with pop culture, it's a little bit hard to say, like, what's a huge pop culture icon that we would know. They do have them. I think Wycliffe Jean is Haitian, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he is.
But again, we're probably not too exposed to these individuals or them being present and very visible in these international events, which is probably why, they could not recognize the flag. It could also be the design too. A lot of the other designs are more clean in the sense that when you look at the flag of Haiti, the colors are very distinguishable, but then that middle part, it's so detailed that maybe some individuals were like, that looks like Haiti, but I don't remember that middle part.
Even like the funny part about, like, since you mentioned the Olympics, Haiti themselves didn't know that they shared a flag with Liechtenstein until it was like one of the early, I don't know if it was Winter Olympics or summer. I have a hard time thinking Haiti sends many people to the Winter Olympics, but you never know. But it was somewhere where they got to the same place as Liechtenstein, realized they both had the same flag. So Liechtenstein put the little like Grand Ducal crown or whatever, and then Haiti put that central element that's like almost a square but frustratingly not. And so like even Haiti learned that their flag was that basically at the same. They're like, oh shit, we're at the Olympics. Somebody else has the same one. We gotta change this, I guess. Like.
Yeah. So yeah, that was really interesting, and I hope I can do research on that. To see, to get that concrete answer. So maybe next time that I'm back on your show or that I see you, I'm going to be like, oh,
yes,
now I have more data that I can share and make it more specific. But I think exposure is probably why Puerto Ricans are probably not that exposed to the flag, because we do have large Haitian populations in certain parts of the island for sure. Not obviously, we don't see the flag flown that often.
Right. So you found they were most, at least, in touch with their local flag, like local municipality, then Puerto Rico, then U.S., or were the Puerto Rico and U.S. kind of like even tier below that?
I didn't ask about the U.S. flag. It was just
gotcha.
The national flag and subnational flag, basically.
Gotcha.
So it's like Puerto Rico and your town. And that was a bulk of the research. The guessing of the flags, that part for me, it was more like fun. I want to see if people guess flags.
Yeah.
But the bulk of it was draw the flag, tell me the parts of the flag and the symbolism. So that was like the bulk of what that research was. And then I ran some stats to see how representative was that.
Yeah.
And if it addressed my hypothesis or not.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall correctly, I was trying to tag it back to prior knowledge. So thinking if an individual had prior knowledge to these symbolisms, then they would have a higher chance to remember them.
Right. Yeah. That would make sense.
Yes.
Yeah. That is fascinating. Can we expect a Carlos presentation at NAVA 59, or are you going to take a year off for once?
Absolutely not. You know. You know that I will always have something to present.
Right on.
I did send a submission. They haven't announced who got accepted. So if you don't see me, it's because it was not selected.
Because outside forces have conspired against us.
No.
Or whatever.
I feel like every year they get more and more presenters, and there was one, the year that we met in Philadelphia, I think that was the year that you and I met. That year I submitted a proposal for a presentation that wasn't accepted.
I was going to say, I don't remember you speaking that year, so it must not have been.
No. But they did explain, and it's a valid reason. They explain we're trying to give new individuals or individuals that are presenting for the first time and have not won the driver award the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, you're going to get sick and tired of these.
Yeah, it's good to know there's like, thought behind it, or that level of thought behind it and everything. But all right, man. Well, we've got to like get close to wrapping up. I did want to get to, we had a listener question from the illustrious Christoph Hook, Soaring Avon in our Discord. He wanted to ask you to go into tips for people without a background in academics and how we can conduct research in a way that's scientific. So if we want to do what you do, but we don't have the background that you do, how do we do what you do?
Well, do you have enough time? Let me get comfortable here, because this is going to take some time.
We can wrap some of it into the Patreon.
No, I think this is a valid question and a really good question, because in vexillology, as we all know, there's no official degree, there's no certificate or anything that anyone can go and get. You can do what individuals like myself and other vexillologists have done, which is get a degree in a different area and then just do the research about flags. Mm-hmm. But there's no set, like I said, certificate or degree that we can get that's going to teach us how to research with flags, which is both good and bad. It's more good than bad, because that means then more individuals that may not have that research background can come in and do the research.
Right. Barrier to entry type. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's wonderful. I think just go back to your K to 12 education when they taught you the scientific method. That's always a great way to start, at least so that you have an idea of, okay, this is what I'm thinking. I need a question. Like, what is it that I want to research? What's the problem? Is there a gap? Is there something that I haven't heard? Like in my case, it's a good example. Like, I haven't seen this arts-based research being used, or research with geography and flags, at least in English or Spanish. There is research in Russian and Portuguese.
Yeah.
But find that, like, what is it that you're trying to discover or study? Put together your hypothesis. What do you think you're going to find? That's always helpful too. Try to formulate that question, and the question doesn't have to be something super formal and perfect. It's more so that then you know when you're going to start looking for your resources. So the key thing when you're doing any kind of research is to base it on literature. And by literature, I don't mean like literature like Mark Twain or something.
Is it
like
weird that I was literally going to say Mark Twain? Why did we have the same author?
There you see.
Anyway,
Great minds think alike.
Anyway,
Think alike.
yeah, reinforcing to not do that.
Yeah, so when I say literature, it's more on what's been published before.
Right.
There are a lot of places where you can find these articles, these publications, but obviously Google Scholar is a great start.
Yes, not enough people know about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely Google Scholar. Not everything is going to be available in the scientific publishing world. A lot of the scientific journals are hidden behind a paywall, like they say. So if you're not in academia, or you don't have access to a library that pays for these journals, you may not get these articles, but still there are journals that are open access, meaning they just publish everything. You don't need to pay. So you will find stuff in Google Scholar. So I always say go to Google Scholar first, because Google Scholar is going to give you the type of resources that you want in research. You don't want Wikipedia, right? Or we can use a blog every now and then, but for the most part, you don't want a blog. You want the type of literature that is based on empirical research, on research that follows, again, the scientific method. It's based on the literature, what others have done, and it's employing these methodologies that are going to test this hypotheses and try to answer your question.
Right, yeah.
So that I think it's a good way to start. From there, you would need to read a little bit more, especially if you are doing that empirical research based on the scientific method. You would have to read a little bit more on the methodologies, because if you're not familiar, you may end up choosing an incorrect methodology, or not incorrect, but a methodology that's not going to answer your research question.
Yeah, or that it doesn't do you any favors, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm the kind of person, like I said, especially in vexillology, I don't think you need that degree, as long as you are following those steps, following that process, and making sure that you rely on that reliable and valid resources. And every now and then, especially in vexillology, you are not going to find that someone has published something on that. It happened to me with this research in art space and geography.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with using an article that's published on a website every now and then. But for the most part, we do want to make sure that everything is centered around the literature that has followed a similar process. And again, just to reiterate, the only part that I would say as a non-trained researcher that you would have to put a little bit more time into is the methodology. And that, even for me as a researcher, I'm still relatively new to research. But even for me as a researcher, I still have to go back and read on all of these methodologies. The arts-based research is a good example. I've never heard of it before, never used it, so I did a lot of reading.
Dude, yeah, I see.
A lot of meeting with people that have done it. So also, actually, that's really good. Do rely on us. And when I say us, I mean all of us in this awesome world of vexillology. Researchers and non-researchers alike, definitely reach out. I don't mind if you reach out to me for anything, because even if you are an experienced researcher, we can always learn from each other, and you can bounce ideas. And that's when you can say, like, oh yeah, this methodology doesn't work, or I can't find something on this topic. And you're like, but are you searching this? And then you have that aha moment. You're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Thank you. Like, yeah, always also rely on this awesome community that we have too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the best research, like the greatest minds in the world. What's the Isaac Newton quotes? Like, if I've seen further than others, it's only by standing on the shoulders of giants, or whatever. It's like, yeah, research is a group activity. Learn from your elders, be the elder to someone else further up the line. Like, you know.
Did you just call me old?
No, I would never. I would never. Anyway, it's time to get out of here.
I hope I answered the question. If not, like I said, feel free to reach out. I can give you more tips and tricks. But, yeah.
No, I mean, to my mind, you absolutely answered it. But I mean, that's good. Yeah. People feel free to reach out to Carlos as well, because you are nothing if not happy to answer questions. So
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic answer. A fantastic way to kind of, round us out here a little bit. And to that end, I think it's probably time to move into plugs. So, do you have anything that you would like to get some more eyes on, some more ears on, anything at all that you would like us Vex heads to be able to see?
Not really. I mean, always check in to see what I'm publishing next, because I have a lot of different projects that I'm working on. I mentioned with my upcoming human geography class, that's research as well. Like, it already got approved by the university. So I will eventually publish that. So always check to see what I'm coming up with next research wise, because I always have something, especially with flags, it's so easy to come up with research ideas and things that we can do. So if you follow me, I mean, I'm not going to plug social media or anything like that, because I don't think I use it for research purposes. But just in general, like, yeah, just follow anything that I do. And like I said, I mean it when I say, if you need anything, reach out. I don't know if we can put my information somewhere there, but you can also just put my name, Westchester University, and I check my university email very regularly. Even right now in the summer session, I still check my email regularly. That's the best way of getting a hold of me. Like I said, I don't mind answering questions, getting together, bouncing ideas off of each other. Cool. Like I said, I always have something new, and I can even throw 3 things at you that you can do. So like, what about this? Why don't you do this? I want to do this, but I don't have time. So why don't you do it?
No, honestly, that's the kind of push that I usually need is stuff like that. But yeah, perfect. If you're comfortable with it, I can put your email address here on the screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out.
All right. Yeah, perfect. I will do that. I was also, only other question I had for you was, I assume you don't mind if I put your NAVA 58 like paper presentation stuff as part of the show notes,
like the full paper, the slides, whatever you need. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I have access to all that from being on the tech team and everything, like setting it up.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have the ones that start like Morales.
Got it.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. So absolutely. Because our listeners, like, I think more than a lot of listeners, do tend to check the show notes. Especially given that it's such a visual, flags are such a visual medium. A lot of these strictly listeners, non-viewers, go and check those. And I think a lot of the viewers do too. But if you're interested in that presentation, go over there and check that out, along with everything else that you've seen and we've talked about here. As far as the show's plugs, I'll say the same thing I say every 2 weeks. It is our Linktree. It's just linktree.com/flagged for content, all spelled out. and that will take you anywhere and everywhere you want to go as far as the show. You can sign up to be a guest. You can sign someone else up to be a guest, and I'll reach out to them. You can watch all our old episodes, see my appearances on other stuff, all that good stuff. Lord, I hate talking about this, but I do appreciate you listening this far. And man, for everyone else who has listened this far, Carlos, they're SOL on my end because I have no good way to close this out. But if you've got anything at all, I would love to maybe even like tag team an outro here with you. You got anything?
Absolutely. You know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, don't stop researching. And don't forget to cite your flags.
Perfect rhythm every time. That was great.
Sync. That was a perfect unison. The definition of a unison.
This has been episode 72. We will catch you all on the fly side, other than those we see on the Patreon, which we'll see in just a minute. Catch you there. Whoop.
Just high five me. Should we would have done like
shit? Oh shit! Okay. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
That worked. Flags for Content is proud to be sponsored by Flags for Good. Go to flagsforgood.com for more information. Flagged for Content is hosted, produced, edited, occasionally written, and always nitpicked over by me, Andy Richardson. Catch you on the fly side, Vex heads.